We're back, episode 2 of Real with Omar. Today's special guest is Darryl Selsey, the owner and broker operator of Four Seasons Real Estate Center in Mount Vernon. Darryl has been a broker for about how long?
30 years.
All right, 30 years, but he looks like he's 30 years old,
Right.
so I don't know, he
Right.
started out of birth. And I'm here to talk with Darryl about different things. Just a little backstory. In 2017, the commercial lending banks that I was using were, they established some pressure, and they were like, listen, if you're gonna keep originating commercial loans in New York State, we need you to get your real estate broker license. So I got it. I'm a newer real estate broker, and Darryl is one of the people that I usually go to when I have maybe a complicated situation or a situation that I'm just not familiar with, and so he's a bit of a mentor for me. So Darryl, in your opinion, what constitutes a great or good real estate agent?
I would say definitely one who understands that it's a partnership with the client. Okay. That the agent does not think that they know everything, because the business is always evolving. So I'll give you an example of a client of mine who's in marketing. Came up with some fantastic ideas,
For
things
what?
that I hadn't, in terms of marketing the house.
His house or her house?
Right,
their house.
Her house.
Okay.
And so, I took the time to find out, about what she does, and I incorporated it in the sale of her home.
Okay.
Which was really great, because she was involved in the process, which she really enjoyed. Mm-hmm. So instead of her everything,
right.
It worked out really well, because if I hadn't involved her in it, it probably would have gone south.
She would have been poking?
Probably so.
Right.
So
you made it part of the process.
Right. So I learned that that's very important. When you're dealing with a client, to find out what it is that they what they do, and there may be some strengths that they possess that can help you.
Right.
And
in marketing their properties.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So so to me, that's someone who listens, because I think that's the most important thing, is that a good agent is going to listen to what the needs are of that client. Mm-hmm. And
listen to respond, not to react, right?
Listen, exactly.
Yeah. A lot of people
exactly.
They just want to act like they know everything, even if they don't, and then later on it tends to bite you in the ass.
Right.
Right.
Because you learn a lot more by listening and and taking.
Let's take it a step back. I know we spoke about this off camera. I want to speak about it on camera. Mm-hmm. All right. So in 04, 05, I think was the height before the meltdown. Every soccer mom was an agent or a loan officer. Right. Then we had the crisis in a way. It purged the system, and I feel, because I'm an OG too. I've been around since then. I feel that today's market right now is a little mirror of that market, where we see a lot of people trying to get into the market, become agents, because it doesn't take that much education, or it just takes certain hours. What do you feel the difference is between, I believe, a professional, somebody who does this for a living, mm-hmm. and somebody who just wants to kind of come in because they see an opportunity to make a couple of dollars? What do you feel are the really distinctive characteristics between people that treat the profession as a craft, mm-hmm. and others that just see it as a, like, how can I monetize as quickly as possible? And we know this for a fact, when things get tough, they're back out.
Right. That's an excellent question.
Thanks.
I would say that in my experience, those that are engaged on a full-time basis, someone who's not part-time, where this is their only source of income, takes it, to a whole nother level. Mm-hmm. And I think that they also understand that that relationship
with the client
okay. is crucial, in that the client has to understand that they're putting the needs of the client above their own, that it's not just a matter of making $1 off of them. Whereas you may find somebody, who's coming in, thinking that it's a great time to get into real estate because I can make a few dollars. They're just thinking about the money. They're thinking about their own interest.
They look at the big number at the commission, because the numbers are all big in New York City,
correct.
Right? Okay.
Correct. So they're looking at the numbers. They're not looking at the individual or the family that's involved in this process. And usually when you're talking about real estate, it's usually one of the largest investments that someone's going to make in their lifetime. So you want to treat it that way, and you want your client to know that you fully understand, what's at stake for them. So you want to deliver a level of service that's consummate with that,
Right.
which you're not going to find from somebody who literally just got their license and wants to make a few dollars.
Right. I mean, me and you've done a few deals, and I think the biggest thing that I've seen is that, your clients, they're all, well, the positions they're put in or the deals that they go into are all sustainable transactions. Where I've run into other realtors where they're like, what's the maximum they can afford for? What can I push this to the limit? And I think that's the attitude of the newer agent or the unrefined or I don't want to say unprofessional, just the agent that's looking at their pocket and not looking at, hey man, in 2 or 3 years, taxes might go up. What happens to the client then? Or what we're facing now, their tenant's not paying. Can they afford to carry this note without, with the moratorium on evictions right now, a lot of small guys, 2-3 family homes are really suffering right now. Right. I think that becomes an integrity call. Me, myself, I had a listing, I think I asked you about this, in the South Bronx for a couple of $1 million, where my seller, he was in a position where the buyer was on default, and I could have coached him to say, hey, take it to court, because I could get my commission, which was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right. But at the end of the day, that could have took years, undue duress on my client, the carrying cost of the property become hundreds of thousands of dollars. So at the end of the day, I was just like, let's get you liquidated damages for your time spent. Right. I'll take a step back. But on the converse of that client, he's with me for life. He was like, oh, thanks a lot. You helped me, took pressure off of me, and you didn't push me, because other agents were telling me, hey man, you should just, put it in court, put in litigation so that you can keep the down payment and get paid. I'm like, yeah, but at the end of the day, the clients are going to suffer during that. What do you think that was the right move, or do you think that's something?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because again, you were putting the needs of the client above your own needs. Right. Right. And in this particular instance, the gentleman saw that and realized that that you're a good human being.
That's a big statement right now.
And and that's what, at least in my experience, I have found that people genuinely like when they're dealing with someone who is just a good person. Someone who truly is looking out for their clients' needs, and it's not about the dollar, for them. And that particular individual that you're talking about is going to be a constant referral source of business for you. Oh, and that's how you build the business. And that's how I build my business, by doing the right thing by people, and then they refer, and then another referral, and that's how, it's worked for me.
Let's talk about all the new agents that have all the new systems and have virtual assistants and have Instagram pages and Facebook pages and MySpace pages and websites and all that. But at the end of the day, like when I speak to people in that situation, everybody starts somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. But they're so busy trying to look a certain way that they're losing the context of how you actually build your business, which is through transaction, one transaction at a time, one interaction at a time. I know you want to scale yourself, but how do you start that? What advice would you give an up-and-comer, a newbie? Because they get caught up in the big numbers, right? Everybody wants to get rich quick. They see that they can leverage themselves, but at the end of the day, what are you leveraging unless you're starting with a solid base? What advice would you give somebody like that?
That socialization, that you need to actually get to know your client. It's great to have all the bells and whistles. Technology is very helpful in real estate, but if you don't know the inner workings of the way a deal actually comes together, then you're not going to be successful. So what I would say is partner with someone who has a proven track record in the business, and have them mentor you so that they can show you what the business is actually about. And then that way you can take the technology that you have and bring it forward and enhance what you've just learned. Right. So the knowledge is extremely important.
So show them the behind the scenes Because everybody just sees $1 million listings on TV and thinks
Right.
it's a couple of phone calls you're standing on the desk and you're negotiating on the phone and
Right.
you're in escrow and you close.
They think that you sign a piece of paper and the next thing, you're at a closing picking up a check.
Right.
They don't realize that you're dealing with.
Break it down. You got the negotiation, right?
Yep.
Then you got contract per inspection.
Correct.
Right? Then inspection goes okay, but then there might be some slight modification to contracts. Then you sign your contract. Then you apply for your loan. Then you get the appraisal.
Right.
Then you pull title. Right. And so the appraisal has to be appraised for the value you're buying.
Right.
The title report, which is basically the credit report of the property, has to have no gaps, no clouds, no conveyance issues. You have to have enough money and income. You have to keep your job during all these crazy things. And maybe 30, 45 days after that, you will finally get a closing date.
Right. If there's no issues with the title.
Right.
Now, one of the things, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that what I try to do is to preliminarily have title run on a property if I'm representing the seller.
Like a
on
lien
that.
search?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we know exactly what we're working with.
Okay.
Because I'll give you an example, working on the 3 deals right now. Everything was great, everything was, no problems. Properties were purchased only a few years ago.
So you thought you were clear because they did all the searches.
Thought everything was clear.
Right.
Okay. Popped up that there no certificate of occupancy, that there were open violations.
Remember
permits.
the deal we did where the guy, we closed the deal, but the previous owner had a pool that they had filled up.
Yes.
And nobody knew about.
Right. Right.
Right. That could be a problem.
That's right. That could definitely be a problem.
Right.
So those are the things, and not understanding what you need to do in order to cure those issues. Going to the various municipalities, going to the building department, researching the file, finding out when these permits were initially pulled, whether the work has been completed. If it's just a matter of a letter of completion that you need, just having an inspector say, hey, yeah, there's a roof on the house, or the windows are there, then that's great. But you run into issues where there are a lot of, especially in Westchester County, there are a lot of underground storage tanks still on properties that exist. The properties, the homes have been converted to gas. Okay, so the homeowner's been there for years, but when you do a search, you find out from the fire department, we still have a record of a 550-gallon tank on the property, which is an underground, storage tank, which is inside, which is under the ground, which could possibly be an environmental concern if there's leakage. So knowing who to contact, knowing, which companies have all their paperwork together, they do it to get the permit, to do the digging, to uncover, to make sure that there's not an issue there, and to close that out and close, you're orchestrating. It's a whole orchestra that you're involved in. You're conducting it.
Right.
And if you can, do it successfully, then you're knocking off, 45, 60, sometimes 90 days from a closing.
And you're talking from the perspective of the real estate agent, real estate broker on the deal. Like this is because I believe, you've been doing this so long, you kind of anticipate issues to resolve them prior to being proactive instead of reactive.
Right.
But most of the people listening to this probably say, hey, this might be an attorney's job. And it probably is if it gets to that point, but I think this ties into the whole quality of being a professional, right? Knowing your shit, basically. Listen, guy, we're in Westchester, this happens, let me look that up for you. Or if you have a guy, I want to sell it, Darryl, I want to sell it for $2 million, and then you come back, like, oh, you have an oil issue, your zoning, is it? You kind of got to bring them back to reality.
Right. Yeah, I mean, again, excellent point in that, if, you've been in the business and, you're successful, then you've gone through, these nuances and exactly what needs to get done.
Right.
The attorney is actually appreciative because they're not actually having to go and take the time to take care of all of these things.
Deal with it, right.
Right, so you're actually, working in conjunction with them to let them know, hey, you know what, I've got this relationship, let me go down, check out and see exactly what it is, and report back and let you know exactly what's going on. This is what I may need from you, later on. But a new agent, doesn't understand that. So when I'm sitting and I'm getting a listing, and I'm sitting with someone, and we're going over.
Do you go with your
everything.
how many agents do you have in your brokerage?
21.
Right.
I have
And
21.
do you go with the newbies? Like, do they?
I
shadow them?
go with the new agents. I go with the seasoned agents. I go with anybody who would like my assistance to be able to, close the deal.
Right.
Because of the fact that I do have a wealth of information, knowledge that I've learned over the years.
Right.
Which is very helpful when sitting with the client.
Invaluable. Yeah, invaluable.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so, when you're going over everything, and it's not just your marketing plan, it's not just putting something in the MLS, it's not just, am I going to be on all the different search engines? Are you going to put a sign on the property? You're going to do all of those things.
What's the most common question
important.
you get from a prospective client?
What's the commission? What's your commission going to be?
Right. And what's your? I mean, we don't have to go into specifics, but what's your answer to that before you even answer the number?
Right. Well, my answer is I know what my worth is. Right. Okay. Because I know exactly what I'm going to have to do with this listing in order to get it across the goal line. And a lot of times, this could be the first home that someone purchased, the first time they're selling. Or this is not what they do on a daily basis. Right. Okay, so they may not understand how much is involved in selling the property. So I tell them that this is what my fee is. Sometimes I'm told, I spoke with someone else, and they said that they can do it, for another number, and I let them know honestly, if that's the only consideration, what you're paying in terms of a commission.
For a service.
For the service. Right. Then I'm not the person for you. My company is not the right office for you.
I'm not the right broker for you. Right.
Correct.
I love it. Yeah.
Because it's true. If I can't defend, what my fee is to you, how am I going to negotiate on your behalf to get you the most amount of money that you want?
Right. Good stop there. So what I've been seeing in the market lately, because we're looking, me and the wife, is a lot of inventory. There's a certain pocket between $500,000 and $1 million, that area.
Right.
A lot of stagnation, a lot of people throwing up big numbers, and then 2 weeks later, price reductions. What do you think about that? I feel, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I know that agents want to make, like you said, the maximum number for their clients, but how do you set a client's expectation? Because sometimes, you walk into a little house, they're like, I want $5 million. And you're like, yeah, man, if this place had $5 million in it,
right,
I get you $5 million. But so how do you have that discussion?
Okay. Well, basically, when you're seeing these homes that are overpriced,
right,
you're usually seeing newer agents that don't have the experience, that can't talk with the client. They just want a listing.
Right.
They don't care what that number is. When they're actually doing a disservice, to that client, because that property is going to become stale.
Right.
They're going to have a price reduction at least once. They're probably going to have another price reduction. The listing will probably expire. It's probably going to go to another broker who will tell them this is actually the price where you should be.
Right.
And then that house will ultimately sell. So, it's all about pricing properties appropriately from the beginning. If you do that, the first 30 days are the most critical of selling the home. 30 days, really is critical in the marketing of the home, because that's when you're going to have the most interest in the property.
Okay.
And in fact, the first 2 weeks are even more critical, because that's when you're really going to have the rush.
A lot of traffic. Okay.
That's when you're going to have the traffic. That's when you're going to know whether or not the agents believe that the price that you've listed the house at, is the right price, and also the market, whether the market, was willing to bear, that price.
Support it. Right. I got you.
And so it's crucial. If you miss that 30-day window, then you're going to become stale inventory.
Okay.
And if you've overpriced it and you've hit that 30-day window, then the next step is you're going to have a price adjustment. Okay? And then it's kind of a waiting game, because people are seeing that there's not movement on it, that it's still available, and then they're going to wait for another adjustment. Okay? They have, the public has a lot of access to home sales,
The internet.
they can, and they know, they know that, hey, the house, a similar house, sold around the corner.
My wife is talking about comps now. My wife's a trainer. She knows what comps mean.
Right. Yeah. So when the buyer knows the vernacular that is used in terms, and you're talking about comps, and you're like, oh, okay, they're informed. They know what's going on.
Yeah.
So if you don't have comps, because if you may like a house, and then someone comes in and says, okay, I love the house, it's great, where are the comps for this? Because I saw that the house around the corner, which is very similar, square footage, condition, everything, style, that sold for $200,000 less. So, where?
Why is this house so much more?
Right.
I got you.
Right. Okay. So, new agent, isn't going to be able to handle that because they've already taken an overpriced listing.
Right. And probably not in the desperation to get a listing, right?
Right.
Right.
Where they probably told, the owner of that property that the one right around the corner sold for $200,000 less, but you have special nails in your house.
Right.
So, that warrants the $200,000 more.
Your blue-colored door is worth $200,000.
Exactly.
So here's a real question, and this is good for the agents as well as for myself. So you put a listing out.
Yep.
Say a seller wants to sell at a certain number. They just want that number because they have their comps, and you're like, okay, fine. Is it better to delist the property after like 60, 90 days and then relist it, or just leave it on the market? In your professional opinion.
In my professional opinion, I would take it off the market.
Okay.
I would take it off the market. I would ascertain whether or not that seller really is serious about selling the property, and if they are, this is what the price is. Okay. And in some instances, say if you don't want to take my word as the professional, let's hire an appraiser to come in here and tell you exactly how the bank is going to look at this property. Because I not only have to sell the house, to the consumer, to the buyer, say, hey,
the market or the open market,
right?
Yeah.
Is that this is the right price? Okay, I've got to sell it to the agent to bring buyers that think it's the right price, and then ultimately, if they're getting a mortgage, to the bank.
And they're going to have their own third-party appraisal,
right,
to verify the value of this sale.
Right. So let's have that appraiser come in now, and if the price is different from what I'm telling you, we're going to go with whatever that appraiser comes up with. Fair enough?
Have you had that conversation?
Absolutely.
And does it go well?
Absolutely. Okay. You usually, I don't want to spend the money. It's like, okay, that's fine. In some instances, I'll say, I will spend the money if you
listen to me.
Will go with what the appraiser, puts it at,
right.
And maybe I'll lengthen the agreement that we have also. Okay. But again, it's all in the beginning of the listing. If you don't price it appropriately, then you're doing a disservice to your client, and ultimately, I may have told you, the client, 10 times it's overpriced. I didn't sell it. All they remember is I didn't sell it, and then you didn't get your price.
I think there's two things happening here, and I want to touch on it real fast. You're establishing the sales price, of course, with the prospective client, but also I think you're establishing a relationship with the client. Mm-hmm. And not that it has to be somebody superior or inferior, but rather I'm a professional. This is what I do. So if you're going to engage me, retain me for my profession, right? This is my stand. This is what I do. So you're going to have to kind of listen to me, like, let me lead. Do you find a lot of clients that like fight you too much? I feel with the internet, it's become a new thing where they're like, oh, but look, and
right.
Sometimes these things are out of context. They don't understand it.
No, you do.
Okay.
You do. You have some that say, well, I got a Zillow estimate, and
I love Zillow estimates,
and they told me that my house is worth $5 million.
$10 million.
And
I want to list it for that.
And right. So I'm just like, well, unfortunately, that's not accurate.
So
data.
you have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath co-op.
Right. So, I start with that. Well, how can I say, well, again, that data is not accurate.
They don't understand that Zillow averages 1, 2, 3, 4 families.
Yeah.
Right? That's
right.
Yeah,
they don't.
We can keep going.
Listen,
right.
A whole bunch of different things that are wrong. Zillow has, some definitely benefits, but they're not accurate,
right.
and most often with their estimates.
Right.
So, I love when I get that because I just right off the bat just say, well, I'm glad that that's where you got the number from,
Right.
and that it wasn't from someplace else, because I can tell you
That's wrong.
there's no basis. That's wrong. So if that's the only reason why you think
glad
that price,
because we can shit.
then it's great. Then we're good. We can move past
we can
that
start here.
and get to the real price.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So that's a good thing. You had touched on before a seller wanting a price.
Right.
Okay.
Because everybody has
So-
$1 million house.
Right, and this is the price that they want.
Right.
So having the conversation of, I can appreciate the fact that you want this price, okay? A lot of things that I want also, but that's not how the market works.
No, that's not how life works.
Right. So I just have to, remind you that that's not how it works. Okay. So
This is real estate, guys,
We look at
not fake estate.
we look at at the comparable sales of homes that are similar to yours in a specified period of time. Okay. Try to do it within 2-3 months, especially in a changing market. Also, you want to have it as accurate as possible. And the market is going to tell you whether or not that's the price, okay? When you overprice because it's something that you want, it just sits there, it becomes stale inventory, you don't sell the house, you get angry, I get frustrated.
What about
and
people
then-
just throwing
and
lowball
then-
offers
and
all
then
day,
we
just to
part
kinda-
ways.
Just to kind of...
Well, I mean, you definitely will get that. But I mean, you know what? It's not necessarily a lowball offer if you're overpriced.
Right. It may be a real offer. Right.
Exactly. So those are the things that you try to, again, it's a partnership. And we have to get along. It shouldn't be antagonistic. It should be that, okay, let's figure we can differ on something, but at the end of the day, we're working for a common goal of getting your home sold.
Right. And hopefully maybe either upgrading
Okay.
you or downgrading you, whatever your situation is.
Right.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I got another question. All right. So now we're going to go to my area. So lenders, right?
Lenders.
Obviously,
yes.
you get approached by different lenders all the time, right?
Yep.
So what basis do you have, or do you have, what kind of metric do you use when you're working with lenders, or how do you establish a relationship with lenders? What do you go off of? Because some guys they yes you to death, and I think we had a deal where the client was getting, I believe, false information.
Right.
So I finally told the client, hey man, listen, I think you should go after that with
Right.
all your heart. You can call me for advice.
Right.
But I don't think that's going to be happening right now in today's market. How do you feel about lenders? And sometimes they're just making really big claims to be able to do things, and then later on, of course, we all know at the closing table, you get your heart broken.
I'm glad you brought that up because, with the relationship that we have, that's what I expect. I expect to say, hey.
Oh, just full disclosure, I
Hey.
called him and apologized when I fired his client.
Right.
I said, I'm sorry, bro. He's not being realistic.
Right.
And I just felt that you're owed that respect because you're the referring agent.
But that's what's important. That's what it's that communication. It's communication. Good, bad, or indifferent. If you're having difficulty, with someone, if they're not being realistic in their expectations, then what you did by letting me know, that's exactly what I expect. If there's a problem with a deal, I expect the communication to know that there's a problem.
Where there's an open CO for a pool that doesn't exist anymore. I told you we can make it happen, but just there's one back there.
Right.
Okay.
If there's paperwork, documents, that things that our mutual client hasn't gotten to you, and I can call and assist in getting that stuff. At least I know what it is.
Yeah.
That that the buyer hasn't done what they're supposed to be doing in order to.
Right. Because we're keeping track of a transaction. There's 7 different professional parties.
Right.
Involved in one real estate transaction. There's the agents, both houses, if that's applicable, with their brokers, loan officer, insurance, appraiser, title agent, settlement attorney, buyer's attorney, settlement agent, settlement attorney, buyer's, seller's attorney. So that's 11 people so far.
Right.
That you got to kind of keep on the same page at all times. It's a lot of balls in the air.
Right.
And people don't understand that. And I think, you're right. Communication has to be key, because there's nothing more frustrating than repeating yourself 5 or 6 or 7 times in one shot, the same thing to everybody. And I think I'm a big believer in that. I'm like, look, I see where it's kind of going. I'm not don't have a crystal ball, but you can kind of feel people's attitudes. You can feel their demeanor and be like, okay, that's his truth, and I'm not gonna like sit there and try to like strip it away. And then unfortunately, I say this all the time. Sometimes people get punched in the face to realize what reality is, and then later on, like I said, I've had deals where I've had other realtors call me and be like, hey man, I'm at the closing table and this guy charged this, this, and this, and he didn't tell the client. And I'm like, well, all right, well, he's your lender. Did he talk to you about it? He's like, no. I was like, well, two things can happen right now. I said, you can get on the phone with him, and because your client's ready to walk, right? So I said, you can get on the phone and be like, look, man, you didn't tell him that, and renegotiate that fee right now, or adjourn the closing.
Right.
I've had that conversation multiple times, and I see that a lot, and I think people should know about that because that's the integrity part. That's what people, that's why people keep calling the same people all the time, and some people are like churn and burn.
Yeah, being transparent is key. Communicating, being transparent, being available, whether it's in the evenings, whether it's on the weekends, to speak with buyers, to, send an email, to send a text back, to follow up, to say, hey, you know what, I spoke with, the referral that you sent me. Just want to know where things stand. Want to know whether, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get it done. Right now, there are a few things that they need to do. So probably in 2 months, 3 months, we've got a better shot.
Yeah, I get that question a lot too. I'd be like, is he ready now? I'm like, no, he's ready in like 60 days, maybe 90 days. Or I have clients that's employed that come in and be like, yo, what do my tax returns have to look like? Like, those are more like projects or rather incubators. They like.
Well, that's exactly it. Right. You want to incubate those. You want to know that, hey, you know what? In 60, 90 days, if you do X, Y, and Z.
If you do everything you're supposed to do.
Right. And those are the things. And a lot of times, people, when they come in here, and I'll just have a conversation with them, I'll know they're not ready.
Right.
And then I'll refer them to you, and then you'll say, reconfirm, yeah, they're not ready yet. But, they will be.
We can get them there.
And they're eager to get there. So, it's educating the consumer, to me is a huge component of, or reason why I enjoy this business and I'm passionate about this business, because you are helping people.
The scary part to me, though, is that there's so much misinformation now. It's almost like it's tiring. It's tiring because you're like deprogramming people that heard this, or you know how it is. People see what they want to see, right?
Sure.
So they hear half of something and they say, hey, that's what I heard. Everything's at 1% right now.
Right.
I said, no. The central bank's at 1%. You're at 2.99, which is historically low.
Right.
But they hear 1%. I gotta like kind of toke them off the ledge for a little while.
Right.
That gets a little bit, like in the beginning when COVID first hit, that became like the biggest thing. I want the 1% loan. I'm like, what 1% loan? Well, the president said he's giving rates at 0%. I'm like, all right, man, let me explain this to you. And I spent more time explaining the central bank system of the way it works and GSEs, government-sponsored entities, Freddie, Fannie. Like, I became an economics professor for like 60 days, and that kind of wears on you because like you're not even doing business. You're just educating the consumer because they see something on the internet or they're on their phone, they see a flash, and they think that's real. That's true.
Right. I would also say that it's a two-way street in terms of working with a lender. It's someone who, just like yourself, hey Darryl, you know what? I've got someone, they're pre-approved for $650 on a multifamily. They're looking in this area, blah blah blah. Can you help them out?
Right.
And then I'm like, yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
At least I know where I'm going.
We know, right. But it's not just, hey, do you have business to give me? Right. It's never been,
It has to be reciprocal.
that way. It has to be reciprocal.
Yeah. If you're going to be in the game for a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
And most lenders, it's what can you do for them?
Yeah. They feel like they buy you like Zillow or they buy you a calendar or something, and we're even Steven. But it should be a professional relationship, which is basically, look, he's really good at that.
Right.
Talk to him about that. Or like I hear Mount Vernon, I hear New Shaw, that's Darryl's like area,
Right.
That's territory. And I really try to make sure that I refer people to you. I've referred other agents to you as well that have had to sell stuff.
Yep.
Because like every territory is different. You can't be a master in every territory. Especially not in Westchester. Westchester has so many little pockets of more exclusive communities for whatever reason.
Right.
we saw a house and they were like, yo, if you buy this house, you have access to this private park that's not even on like, you wouldn't know about unless you're in the area, which had its own pool, which is pretty dope. And you know, I'm learning as I go, and I've been in this game a long time. But there's so many things that you can't tell by the internet that people don't really know. So I think engaging a professional is true. If you're serious about doing something, it's almost like getting a coach, right? You want to be better at basketball, your jump shot, get a shooting coach. If you want to, you want to sell for the most realistic price, get a real real estate broker. If you want to really know what you qualify for and not what I can stretch you out to, get a real loan officer. I mean, that becomes, the word is real. That becomes just the constant, I believe.
No, I agree. And, you know, that's one of the first things that I do also is, you know, how much do you want to spend on a monthly basis?
Right.
Okay. Not how much, you know, were you told that you can get a mortgage for $750. What are you comfortable with on a monthly basis? Okay. And so let's look at that number and let's back into it.
Right.
Okay?
Reverse engineer it. Right.
Right. You know, okay, let's look at what the taxes are going to be, you know, what the mortgage is going to be, what your insurance, and based on what you're telling me, this is where you need to be. And a lot of times, you know, people are appreciative because, you know, they say, hey, yeah, I don't want to spend that much money.
I can, but I don't want to.
Right.
Right.
I'm not comfortable. I can, but I'm not comfortable. That's not where, you know,
I don't want to feel stretched
my sweet spot. Exactly.
Whereas another rookie guy will be like, no, you can do it. Just get into it. I'll refinance you
They
later.
want to put, because, you know, you realize that, you know, you've got utilities, you know, you've got to eat. You still like to go on vacations.
You got landscaping.
You wanted, like, all of these things, you know, add up. And, you know, the last thing you want to do is have, you know, if it's a, you know, husband and wife, you know, just looking at each other, upset because they're, they're cash poor. I mean, they're in this beautiful house.
Their way of life has drastically changed.
But, but they can't do anything.
Right.
You know, they can't go out to dinner. They can't go on vacation. You
They
know,
live
they've
to pay the
got,
mortgage.
right. You know, they're wearing, 3 layers of clothing because they don't want
to turn the heat on.
Right. So, I mean, those are things that,
That's reality.
that's reality.
Yeah.
And for a first-time buyer also, I mean, these are things that that they lived in an apartment building, you know.
They don't worry about heat.
They weren't worried about that. They had the windows open in the winter and they didn't worry about it.
They don't worry about boilers. They don't worry about water heaters. They don't worry about toilets. There's so many things, not to try to scare people off of buying, but there's more to it. The flip side, the contra, is that you're building equity into yourself. So that's where the mindset changes, whereas I'm just using this to live, or I'm living here and I can leave this as a legacy to either my kids or grandkids, or if I want to make a move, I can sell and actually get cash back for all my sweat equity.
Generational wealth.
Right.
You know, so that is, yes, that is the key. And, you know, you'll find a lot in Black and brown community that they were at a disadvantage. They didn't have that head start. And we can go back to redlining. We can go back to the GI Bill, and there was a disservice that was being done. And, you know, but they're now, you know, whether it's FHA programs or there are other
VA programs are no money down, right? Some veterans, they qualify for that. You got Home Possible, Home Affordable, which is 3% down, conventional. You have FHA, which is 3.5% down. You have stated loans that are back now, which you have to have some more cash guys, like the guys who have the bodegas, the liquor stores, they have a lot of cash, don't show taxes. They could, you know, like access is being created again.
Right.
But I think that people, like, when I sit with them, you know, once you give them like a bit of a roadmap, and I'm like, look, man, with $20,000, you can put that house and get into a $500,000 house, and your payment will be $3,500. And they're like, oh, really? You're like, oh shit, I can afford that, right? And then I'm not even talking about the rental income. If you get rental income, now you're pity washing, and then you're paying $1,800 a month, and then you're winning. But that's the part, I think, going back to the disservice and I believe the financial illiteracy of the Black and brown communities that I believe is still rampant, and I'm hoping to change that with things like these videos and these podcasts, because, you know, like, just if they hear one thing that maybe strikes them, they get curious and start educating themselves, and they can change their life. You know, like before me, I'm a first-time home buyer in my family. My mother, she was renting. I was like, Mom, let's put this money together, let's buy a house, and it changes the game. Now you have your own place, and we want to sell it. You want to make $300,000 and go to Puerto Rico? Good luck. There you go.
Right.
But nobody thought in those patterns before because we weren't educated that way. We weren't taught to use leverage. You know, we were taught to work 9 to 5 and, you know, go to the liquor. I'll go deeper on you. I will go to the liquor store to cash your check.
Right.
You know, like
Right.
all those things are embedded in racism and
No.
also in a way to
Absolutely.
mentally enslave us, because I had a liquor store and I know people used to come and I'm like, why would anybody come cash their check at the liquor store? They did it from the 60s, the 70s.
Right.
That, I mean, you just touched on that and it just brought me back. And I was like, wow, that's weird, but why would they do that? But why not? You cash your check, you buy something here, and you know, like you're already giving away your money before you get it. So
No.
yeah, I think that was a really good exodus on this chapter, because yeah, generational wealth is where it's at, and hopefully by doing these podcasts and doing these videos, we get to change people little by little, and eventually they see people like us and we look like them,
Right.
and all of a sudden they're like, yo man, maybe you can show me how to do that, because maybe I don't want to live in a 2-bedroom, you know, 6-story rental unit. Maybe I want to buy something. How do I buy something? You could buy a co-op or a condo for 120, 150,000
Exactly.
and pay $500, $600 a month in a mortgage, which is less than your rent, but nobody teaches you that. Nobody teaches you that, you know. $5,000 down, you're in, which is 3 months rent payments.
Right.
For most of the communities.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what we do also, because we see that all the time. You know, it's like, why would you want to spend $1,500 on a rental when that same $1,500, you know, you can own, actually it would end up probably being about $1,200.
Right.
And, you know, you could own something, you know, that's going to be nicer than what you were renting.
And build equity for yourself.
Build the equity,
Right.
you know, be able to, you know, to have the tax write-offs on the interest, the, you know, 50% of the maintenance.
The tax
all
laws
of
that were
stuff.
created to help protect the landowner.
Right.
That we weren't educated on.
Right.
Like I went to NYU.
Right.
Unless I took a real estate class, they didn't talk to me about that. You know, so like it's a big thing. Like I believe financial literacy. Even my own kids, I'm talking to them and they're like, really? Is that what a mortgage is? I'm like, yeah, it's a contract, it's a loan. Like my middle son was talking about, I'm not leaving until I have my down payment.
Right.
So hold on.
Right.
Hold on, bro. Hold on. Let's not put a date on that. I'll help you with the down payment. Get you out of here. But yeah,
no, but to have that mindset is
to change the mindset. That's really the most powerful thing you can do, man. You can change generational mind. You know, I believe the only way we're going to change things in this country is through ownership, is through being in a position of ownership where we can make a financial difference or a contribution to certain causes to really change the narrative. I think that's the truly old, to me, and this anybody, you know, they can hit me up and tell me I'm wrong, but I've always believed that. I believe that, you know, there's the black and the brown and there's the green, right? The financial racism in the country is incredible. And people don't understand that because they don't know. Their consciousness levels are not there because they weren't educated. And it's funny how certain conversations are excluded with certain people. And people don't understand that, how powerful that is. If they won't talk to you as, hey, you have the potential to be an owner.
Right.
No, you're a tenant, bro. Think about that mental latch that kind of like cripples you, right? Like, I don't know if I can do that. And then, so yeah, I go off on a tangent. I got an award last year from a friend of mine who has a big karate school, about 500 students. And I said, yo, why you give me this award, bro? He goes, yo, bro, he goes, because these kids don't have people that look like them, that are doing what you're doing. He's like, you don't understand the difference in the way they look at themselves in the mirror now, because they're like, oh, I can do real estate, I can be my own CEO, and not be work anywhere else. I don't want to demean any other occupation, but I didn't understand how important that was. And he's like, oh, it's super important, especially young kids. If they don't see it, they don't believe it. You know, as they see you, they're like, oh, this is a possibility. And I'm hoping those things will change things in the future, you know? So Darryl Selsey, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Anything you want to end with?
Thank you, Omar. Just want to say that, you know, again, you know, thank you, Omar.
No, of course.
You know, to me, it's a passion of mine, you know, real estate, helping those that look like me to be able to achieve something that they, you know, didn't think was possible. So thank you for, you know, giving me the opportunity to let people know.
There it is.
That I'm here.
That's what it's all about.
Right. Again, Omar, thank you very much for having me on today. Real estate
Thanks for being on.
Is my passion, and you know, it's something that is important for people that look like us to be able to become homeowners. And you know, I am here for them, to assist them, to educate, talk with them. Just to, you know, help them to achieve the American dream. You can reach me at FSREC at Instagram or at my website, fsrec.com. Again, Darryl Selsey, and thank you.